So when I was a freshman in high school, I was in foster care, and I'm the oldest of 7 kids. So we all moved up north to move in with a family that was willing to take all 7 of us in. And one of my first memories there was all 7 of us playing outside in the front yard, where there was this big crabapple tree that, the season had kind of passed, so the crabapples were all rotten and on the ground. And my brother Elijah, who tends to be the one that's mischievous and starts all the crazy, also fun stuff, picks up a crabapple, a rotten one, and starts throwing it at my sister Lexi. And Lexi's super competitive and very athletic. So, of course, she picks another one up, and now a game has begun. And meanwhile, my youngest sister, Gabby, who's our little blonde princess, was about a year old at that point, maybe a little bit over a year old. And she's just right on my hip, ready to avoid all the crab apples possible. And before you know it, all of my siblings are in on this crabapple game. And in that moment, we were all just enjoying life, living life together, just being goofy and silly and enjoying just little things. And that was super important to us. But not long after living there, my foster mom got really burnt out. She was trying to take a burden off of me by trying to do all of the chores herself, and she wouldn't really let us help with laundry or anything. So she basically got really burnt out after a couple months. And so pretty shortly, she decided to send us off one by one. It was kind of like, as soon as you weren't perfect, you were the next one to leave. And so the first one to leave was my little brother Luke. Luke has always had some behavioral problems, and he used to throw tantrums and throw his head back, and because of that, he had little glasses. And so he was the first one to leave, and that really instilled this idea of perfection in my own self and in my mindset, because why would anybody have to leave if they belonged here or anything like that? And so shortly, all of my siblings just kind of got picked off one by one and moved into different homes. And so about a year later, I found myself in another home that I really loved, and they made it a point to not see me as a burden and to really love me for who I was. And it actually was so opposite of that other home I was in that the mom would tell her own daughter that she should be more like me. And so one of the vivid memories I have is when we were all sitting at the dinner table, and my foster mom passed me a roll for dinner, and I was like, oh, thank you, like, it looks really good. And I was just trying to be out of the way and quiet and not causing problems, because then I thought I would be able to stay and I wouldn't have to leave again if I wasn't ruining the family. But even just with my presence, it was disrupting the family and the family dynamic. And so my foster mom looks at me after I used manners and looks at her own daughter and says, why can't you just be more like Julianna? And of course I was uncomfortable, but I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't know. I just wanted to be out of the way and not a problem. And so I really loved living at that home, but I knew that just by being there, I was tearing apart a relationship between the biological mother and the biological daughter. And that was hard because I knew it was my fault, but I was trying so hard to not be in the way. And so after like a year of living there, roughly, someone came and told me that there was another family willing to take all 7 of us. And of course, I didn't think that was going to work out. I was like, yeah, I've done that before, and it failed, and it was awful. And 7 kids is a lot of kids, and all of us together are just going to be a big problem and a big burden. So no, I don't want to go there. I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready. I kind of wanted to be my own person because I had to be a mom to my siblings for so long that I didn't really know who I was or what I wanted to do with my life or anything like that. And so I kind of figured that I would just settle for ruining the family dynamic at the place I was at. And so all of my other siblings, the 6 of them, all chose to say yes, and they went and lived with this amazing family. And not long after being there, after they were all there and I was alone by myself, I decided I did want to go and try it. And so after a couple months of being there in 2020, which was pretty recent in the pandemic times, I remember getting my first report card and handing it to my foster mom and being so excited for her to just tell me that I was finally good enough, that I had the best grades I could have. And I was excited for her to like maybe praise me a little bit, or just, I don't know, maybe then I would be worth keeping or worth being a part of a family if I was just good enough. And so grades for me was a part of that. And so I showed her my report card and she was like, cool. And I was like, what? Like, why aren't you more impressed? Like, what can I do better? And she was like, no, like, grades aren't that important. Like, it's not, grades are awesome. And I'm glad you have good grades and you're trying hard in school. But she said to me, you don't need to be perfect. Like, you don't need to have it all together. Um, she said, we'll still choose you. We, as in my parents, my new parents, we will still choose you every day, even if you're not perfect and even if things are hard. And I just remember being like, what is this chosen thing she's talking about? I haven't really heard of that or thought of that or anything. I was just used to being a burden and not being wanted and not being chosen and just tearing apart families without meaning to, even if I was trying to be out of the way. And so I was confused, but life goes on and life was busy. So kind of forgot about that until later that year, November of 2020, finally all the adoption paperwork was done and we were ready to all 7 be adopted by this family, which is just like unbelievable. It definitely felt surreal every day. And so my dad told us he had a surprise for us like an hour before the court room event that we had to go to. And so we were all like, okay, what is the surprise? There's a limo that showed up in our driveway and we all got to ride in a limo to the courthouse. And so next thing I know, I'm in the courtroom and there's hundreds of family and friends who've been supporting and loving all of my siblings and I all the way through on Zoom. And I remember very vividly my dad stood up on the stand and looked at my littlest brother, Luke, who was the first one to leave the last home that took all 7 of us. And he looked at him and he said, Luke, you're the trail leader. You have led all of your siblings here and home with us. And because when he left that home, he came to our new home. He was the first one at the Morningstar family. And so he really was the trail leader. He really led the way for all of us. And that was such a special moment for Luke to feel like a big part of everything that had happened. And so as the day goes on, we're all, crying and it just felt so surreal. As time goes on, I remember looking at these stuffed animal bears that they had given us. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, why would they give me a stuffed animal bear? I'm, 17 years old at the time. And I remember looking really closely at the keychain on the bear, and it said the word chosen on it. And I remember as soon as I saw that word in that keychain, I remember just feeling this huge relief that this battle that I had been struggling with of feeling like a burden and feeling like I was in the way, it was finally over. Like I was finally chosen forever. And I didn't even know that I wanted to be chosen, but man, that felt good. And so since then, I've been living with my family, adopted. My last name's Morningstar, and it's been an amazing life. It's not been perfect, but they've continued to choose me every day. And so I could not be more grateful for that. Thanks.